I'd like to call this meeting to order and do a roll call and make sure we have a quorum.
We do have a quorum, and I will call the roll. Davidson is currently absent. Donovan?
Here.
Hawkinson?
Here, sorry.
Huthman?
Here.
Cortez?
Here.
Do we have Jen Lautenbach there in the boardroom?
No.
Okay, she is absent. Lilyquist?
Yes.
Sadhu is absent. And do we have Dan Darwin?
No.
Currently absent. Mayor Fleetwood, I believe, is currently absent. Thank you. And I would like to just take a quick moment to say thank you to Audra. She has accepted a promotion into the finance department. So this will be the last meeting where she is helping as our Zoom host. And just want to thank her for serving in this role. It's been so helpful. Thank you, Audra.
Yes, thank you, Audra.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
So we'll start with a small congratulations to Audra's promotion, and then we'll go on to employee recognition. Eric, I think you have both of these.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. This is, of course, my favorite part of the board meetings, where today we get to celebrate and recognize two outstanding employees for WTA. As we pull up the slideshow, I'd like to welcome Carrie Myers to come join me up here where everybody can see her. The place you'd least want to be right now, I'm guessing. So first up today is we get to recognize Carrie Myers for 25 years of service to Whatcom County in her various roles at WTA. Carrie started as a transit operator and served as an amazing transit operator for 18 years, and then transitioned these last 7 years into our dispatch center. And one of the things that Carrie really brings to the dispatch center is a sense of big picture. What is it that she is doing and how does it fit into the role of WTA? Good morning, gentlemen. And within that, what are the ways, where are the opportunities for us to improve? And she looks for ways for WTA to improve and shares those with her supervisor with me, always looking out for the best interest of WTA and how we can be more effective at our mission. She has also been a longtime member of ATU and wore many hats within ATU and really supported her coworkers through those efforts. And a connection for some of our longer time board members. Her husband is former ATU president Mark Lowry, who used to serve on the board with many of you. So 25 years, Carrie, we thank you so much for your dedication, your commitment, just the work that you bring to the community. Thank you, and I give you an opportunity to get this move on. Thank you, Carrie. Isn't it fun to look back at old pictures? 25 years, a long time ago. Okay, and next up is for 20 years, Mr. Tom Hovind, fellow UW alum. Welcome. Go Dogs. Go Dogs, right. 20 years exceptional service at WTA. You're going to sense there's going to be a couple themes, especially if you think back to last week or 2 weeks ago as well. Tom started as an operator. He is a cross-trained transit operator, but also has served in so many different roles and stepping up into leadership at the WTA as Carrie has. He was a terminal expediter, so he spent time during those transitional periods of our stations supporting field operations at the station. He is a sub-dispatcher. He is a union shop steward in supporting his teammates through that great work. He is a driver mentor. He has done leading trips for our outdoor club, hikes, and I think that the story that I think connects with so many people in just an amazing way is he's also now a CPR first aid trainer. And I think the genesis of that, the desire to become a CPR trainer, is a story that Tom can share about taking the CPR class and days later having to put those skills into effect to save his wife Lisa Marie. He performed CPR on Lisa and saved her life because of the training that he received. And sorry, it's an amazing story, and it just highlights just your desire to serve and to learn and to grow, and you're just an amazing employee. I appreciate the 20 years that you served in all the ways that you served the community.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Tom Hovins.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. I think, yeah, it's been almost 10 years. It was December 29th of 2013, right, that Lisa arrested. And as you can see, she's fit, she exercises, she has absolutely nothing wrong in every other sense except for an electrical anomaly. And so it was, by the grace of God, I was asleep and she just came to bed and she let out her last breath. And thankfully it woke me up. And we got her to the hospital where they, you know, the doctors at St. Joe's are amazing. The techniques, the processes are amazing. And little by little, over the course of 10 days, she came back to me, came back to us. And so I'm grateful to God for a fully functional wife with all of her capacities. But yeah, I think you mentioned my desire to become a trainer. Again, it's been 10 years and I've it was a very traumatic experience. I don't wish it upon anybody, but I do encourage all of you, if you're not already, to get CPR training, because you're most likely without a loved one, your spouse or your family member. And it's better to try than not to be able to do anything. I think the desire, however, came from this last football season, watching Damar Hamlin collapse on the field. And, you know, the quick response brought him back much quicker than Lisa came back. And I'm pretty sure they have different conditions, but that event, plus the fact that just recently Lisa and I were asked to speak down in Redmond at the company that makes our AEDs, the automatic external defibrillators, Stryker Corporation down there. We were able to speak and tell our story at one of their quarterly meetings. And as a result, we were able to then donate an AED to the Young Life Beyond Malibu program up in Canada, where I served as a summer boat driver 30 years ago. So I guess my message to all of you, again, is get certified, you know those skills and help save a life. And then, like we've done with Lucas Hill, another brother operator here at WTA, recognize them for helping our community. You know, we are in the community every day, and we are eyes and ears, you know, and it's great to be able to step in with skills that we've learned here and help our community.
How extensive is CPR training?
How extensive is CPR training? It probably is a 6-hour class, and it just takes a portion of a day. And I'll be looking, now that I'll be getting my card today, hopefully. I'm co-teaching a class downstairs as we speak today in order to get my card. And I'll hopefully be able to step into the community and organize classes myself outside of WTA. I mean, the church we attended at the time, 10 years ago, they were inspired to start getting whole monthly classes, making sure that the congregation knew the skills. So you can always go to the American Heart Association website and find classes in the area. I know Bellingham Tech holds regular classes, and I can give you my phone number. We can connect. So anyway, thank you very much for the recognition. WTA has been a great place to work. I appreciate the skills and knowledge that I've gained and serving my community. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Paps.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Carrie. I agree, Eric, that is a really great way to start these meetings. I would note that Mr. Darwin and Mr. Fleetwood are here in attendance in the boardroom now. Are there any citizen communications that we received that we should know about?
We've received no board communication.
Are there any members of the public who would like to address the board? If you're online virtually, you'll have to unmute and try to get our attention. Is there any public attending by Zoom? Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and close the citizen communications portion, go on to board actions. First one is consideration of extension of the Whatcom Council of Government Smart Trips Interlocal Agreement. That agreement is on pages 1 through 8. Mr. Rivers.
Yes, sir. So this is modification number 5. You just did 4, and I apologize that we didn't extend it far enough. We have received word that we did receive the grant for the next 2 bienniums, but we haven't received the grant documents yet, which we need to incorporate into the new interlocal for the pass-through of the dollars. So we decided to extend it out to September 30th to give us time to get those and get those requirements incorporated. So we'll be bringing a new interlocal for September. And as you know, the Smart Trips program is part of the board's transformational kind of thinking on transit demand management, documented in our WTA 2040. So getting the grant to expand those services in cooperation with great partner COG is super helpful.
We must be approaching the 20-year anniversary of Smart Trips. It's getting close.
You know, that's a good question. I bet it is.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'll find out.
Sure.
Seth, would you like to make a motion?
Move to approve. I'll second.
A motion for us to approve the contract extension, and again, we'll be seeing further interlocal on this a little bit later. Any further discussion? I can't see all the people online currently on the screen. So if there's a board member, speak up. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor of approving the interlocal agreement to extend the term signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll now go on to the consent agenda, which consists of routine expenditures and the meeting minutes from May 18th. I'll move approval.
Second.
The motion before us for the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed to the consent agenda? Those are approved unanimously. We now go on to reports of the board. The biggie this morning featuring Tim Wilder, Zero Emission Fleet Transition Study Final Draft Report, which you should have received separately. It's a separate PDF document. I don't know, Les, do you want to say anything? Go straight to Tim.
I'd like to compliment Tim and the team for developing this as a framework for going forward as technology changes quickly. Some other entities have run into, they adopted these plans that are outdated. And so they're having to go through a lot of machinations to try to update and amend and do these formalities because they didn't have an envelope to prevent or present those questions into the future that allows us to, as our WTA 2040 says, be nimble and flexible as we move forward. And so the foresight that this group had in thinking, okay, let's develop an envelope that gives us the framework to make decisions into the future. Just appreciate that, as a lot of agencies are starting to run into problems with that. So thanks, Tim.
Great. Yeah, so this would be the last meeting that you'll have on the Zero Emission Fleet Transition Study. We've had 3 previous meetings with the board, at least 3, might have been 4, on this particular project. And so it basically concludes the work. As you know, we do have the draft study that hopefully you had a chance to at least take a glance at. That's on our online engagement platform, so for the public to view as well. So what we hope to do is have this final meeting to be able to answer any questions you might have, any comments you might have on the draft report. We would accept comments after this meeting. I think I had a deadline of June 19th. We've got to get the study done to comply with our state grant that helps to fund the project. So hopefully that's enough time for you to provide some comments if you have any. So we don't have a formal presentation today. I think the intent was, again, to hear from the board you had any last minute comments. So we do have the consultants here in case you do have questions. But I did want to kind of recap on what I think some of the major conclusions of the study were, just to kind of refresh you. One is, I think we learned that this goal that we have to do a fully transitioned fleet by 2040, we think it's achievable. We've actually made some really good progress on getting towards that goal. In fact, by 2025, we should have about 25% of our fleet that is battery electric bus. So that's a good progress already. As you know, Midway lot, we've got charging infrastructure there. We're gonna have to do more work around charging infrastructure, but we made good strides. So we like to think about the next few years as getting ready for the technology. Technology is not quite ready for us yet. I think that's sort of the conclusion. It's still evolving. As Les mentioned, we're learning from other agencies that are going through the same transition, and they're sharing almost exactly the same issues that we have discussed. Questions about infrastructure, questions about the range of battery electric buses. The range is still insufficient to cover a lot of our routes, but it is getting better over time. We're still dealing with some of the concerns over the reliability of our buses. It's still not where it needs to be, but it's getting better. And then we're also learning that it's the energy production for electricity and hydrogen is not 100% green. It's still well short of that, but it is evolving and getting more sustainable over time. And then finally, hydrogen. We've discussed hydrogen in this report as well as being a future option. We feel that it's also not ready yet at WTA. Main concern there is we just can't get a source of hydrogen. Over time, that could change, and so we want to be ready for that change if it happens, since that could provide some additional range beyond what the electric buses could provide. So finally, just some strategies that we have put into place for the next few years is continuing on our planning design around zero emission vehicles, looking at Moab, looking at our North Lot, Midway for opportunities to provide the infrastructure necessary for zero emission buses. We don't have to make any immediate decisions. I think we have a goal of making a decision on this specific technology for the next round of buses by the end of 2024. So again, Andy's leading the charge as far as doing the design, looking at the opportunities for providing that infrastructure, looking at the loads, load requirements, and the infrastructure to provide enough energy to power the buses. So that's basically what we have in conclusion. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to the board and see if you have any questions, comments for staff or consultants.
Seth, go ahead.
Could you clarify what you mean by review? What will we be reviewing? What questions will we be asking ourselves by the end of 24?
I think the primary question we'll be asking ourselves is the technology question. What is the next round of buses? What's the technology to power the next round of buses? Is it battery electric buses or is it fuel cell electric buses? So that'll be a primary question, because that drives the kind of infrastructure that we're going to need to put into place. So if it's battery electric, then you've got chargers, then you got to look at the loads for those. You got to look at space. Where are the buses? Where we put the buses? Probably on the North Lot, where we might have some electric capacity. If it's fuel cell, then we'll be looking at where's the hydrogen production. Community Transit is preparing to do a hydrogen production facility, so there might be a possible partnership with them if they have available hydrogen. So we'll have to look at those things at that time. So it's mostly about the infrastructure.
Thank you.
And if I could, that'll drive multi-million-dollar decisions.
Yeah.
And so whatever technology we go with will have a follow-on effect. And we balancing that with some of the other transformational changes that whether it's transit supported development, whether it's rapid transit, whether it's those other things too, and how do we balance those and sequence them over time.
Todd?
Yeah, so if we're going to make a decision at 2024 or whatever about going to fuel cell or electric, but we're already going to be a quarter into electric, would the decision then be whether we have both, or we would then revert from the electric we invested in?
Yeah, we absolutely will have both for a certain amount of time. I don't think we have to make a decision about all or nothing. I think it could be a variety. I think it could be both. There's nothing to preclude us from doing both. But at the same time, I think we'll have to look at groups of vehicles. It's not like we're going to do one-offs, I think, as far as each of the technologies. We'll have to do batches of vehicles. I think that makes more sense with the investment in infrastructure. Andy, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or Paul.
You covered it pretty well. The infrastructure, the Midway lot is only designed to do 25%. So either way, we have to upgrade infrastructure for whatever technology.
Is it fair to say that fuel cell is much cheaper infrastructure than going all electric?
Correct.
Yes. So that's kind of one of the decision points. And that, I'm not saying that's what the driver is of that decision, but it's one of the factors that will go into it.
You can also phase in electric infrastructure, so you could phase that in and not have the entire cost. So there's, you don't have to do everything at once. So we could over time we could change if we need to. Technology.
And there are other agencies, for example, Island, that is doing a fuel cell, and their plan is fuel cell and electric to meet various routes that they have.
That's the same with C-Tran down in Vancouver. They're also investing in both.
Other board members? Go ahead, Seth.
Is it a hybrid technology, or is it they're investing in some fuel cells separate and distinct from that, then also electric?
Yes, the latter. They're investing in both fuel cell and electric. So they're timing it such that they can immediately invest in battery electric technology. And then there's a certain number of years where they're looking at fuel cell. They need to develop the infrastructure for that and the source of hydrogen in interim years, right? So they're kind of batching it out between battery electric and fuel cell. It's not a hybrid. It's one or the other. But you mentioned hybrid. That's the other short-term aspect that we're looking at here, and we plan on doing some short-term investments in hybrid buses while we're making that transition to the future zero-emission fleet.
Part of the infrastructure is what we have to do here, but it's also then the supply chain infrastructure. Who's producing the hydrogen, for example? What kind is it on the grid side, the electricity, the supply, those kinds of things. So it's kind of integrated.
So I'd like to ask a question from the other side. Unfortunately, I've got two laptops. Both are not cooperating. Is there any scenario in which we continue to operate diesel buses, or maybe I'll ask it a different way? At what point would we have probably gotten rid of all diesel buses, and for that matter, all hybrid buses? So it's unclear whether we're going to fuel cell electric or battery electric. We're all going to figure that out in the next decade or so. But what does the phase out look like for diesel? So can we basically, even if we don't know which zero emission technology we adopt, when can we say we are going to be adopting a zero emission policy or strategy plan? When do we think we would phase out the last of the fossil fuel based buses?
Paul, I'm going to.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So based on your current fleet replacement plan, you would phase out diesel only vehicles in 2035, and your last hybrid would exit service in 2039. So at that point, you'd be fully zero emissions. If you take buses out to their 12-year, lifespan and don't retire them early, which we wouldn't expect WTA to do.
Paul, can you show that transition slide?
Yes.
Do you have that available?
I do.
Because I guess I'd like to kind of focus on the positive, that we are going to be going to zero emission. There's two viable technologies. Figuring out the mix between those two technologies has to be a work in progress. But I'd like to focus on the fact that we have 2 ways of getting there, 2.5, 3 ways combined, however you want to call it. But that by 2035, we would have phased out the last diesel vehicle, and there'd be no reason to replace it in kind.
If I may, the board has adopted in 2040, or WTA 2040 plan, 2040 goal. And so all these discussions are to meet that goal.
2035 sounds better.
I think what the report says is it's possible to do it by 2035. Now we'll have to decide what happens in the next few years, but the goal is 2040. So that's kind of an evolving process. It depends on the technology, but we think it's achievable by 2035 if certain things happen, right?
And that's the beauty of this, is providing that framework to allow us to accelerate as we figure these decisions out.
Scott?
Can you guys see the screen okay here? It's just
We
wanted to
can
pull
see
up
the
graph.
screen.
Okay.
I don't have again, I got the wrong glasses with me.
That's all right. So if you have the report in front of you, this is page 47 of the report. This outlines one of the different options. This is assuming that WTA continues to purchase all electric buses. It shows that kind of fleet replacement curve. Again, as we've mentioned a couple of times, there are a couple different options, and those are found again within chapter 6 of the report. So there's another one on page 51 that looks at if you transition to fuel cell. And then there's the hybrid option on page 55 that looks at what happens if you start splitting. But again, the retirement of your fossil fuel fleet is the same for both of those options, or for all 3 of those options as well. So 2039 would be your last hybrid bus would leave service.
Thank you, Paul. Scott, go ahead.
I was at a presentation a few weeks ago with Alt Gas. They bought the Intelco site and they want to put in a hydrogen fuel. I think we as a community ought to be encouraging that, because I view hydrogen as a really good alternative here, probably better than battery power, as it is more of a fuel.
I would like to jump on that. There's a lot of interest in regional facilities for hydrogen production. I think there's at least 2 locations for hydrogen generating facilities being discussed in Washington State. This could be a 3rd one. I think, as I mentioned in a previous meeting, all the local large jurisdictions, the county and the city, have heavy vehicles, and hydrogen may be the solution as long as the hydrogen is green hydrogen. I think that's the goal at Cherry Point. I think we have critical mass here, and there's also, I'm sure the private sector will be interested. So there's critical mass here in Whatcom County, and I would like us to be a louder voice out front, indicating that there will be customers for hydrogen in Whatcom County.
I guess my point is that this community is not known to encourage development out there. And this is development this community could use. And so maybe there has to be some mind shifting on this.
So Scott and I are forming a fan club for hydrogen clear hydrogen at Cherry Point. We'll be printing T-shirts. Please join us. But seriously, I do think that it would help if potential users like WTA would be vocal about the demand side of the question. Les, you want to say something?
Agree. We'll take that charge. There's a good confluence of industries here in Whatcom County that would support that, whether that's commercial trucking, whether that's aviation, maritime, buses, all those things share a commonality that would support that and be those customers. I think the challenge for us as a county is how do we bring those interests together and be that voice to show that there is a return on investment for investing in that, and that there is already an organic customer base here to purchase that. Long haul trucks from the county, for example, getting out to some of the remote areas of the county, those trucks are going to probably need hydrogen as opposed to battery electric, because you can't really do a in-service charge out in some of those areas. So it's a good idea.
Just to clarify, if I could, as it relates to Cherry Point, if the suggestion was that local government leaders are not supporting that. This idea of hydrogen at Cherry Point has been around for several years now. And every time it's been presented to people like me or Executive Sadhu, including state reps, it's got nothing but green light for further consideration. So
We just need our community to hear that, so
Yeah.
that they get behind it.
okay, good.
Can I just add that when we did the revision of the Cherry Point code, there were changes to encourage non-fossil fuel facilities, such as what we're speaking about right now. So it's actually being encouraged in the code.
Todd, do you have any idea where the point of influence might be at this point?
It's people, I don't know, for the government, like I follow what Scott's saying and, encourage people to support this if it is in fact green hydrogen. But the permitting process will be easier for a facility like that than for expanding a fossil fuel facility, in my understanding of the code revisions.
Further discussion by board members, either on hydrogen or just simply the zero emission bus transition plan? Well, if not, I would like to congratulate us on getting here. This is where we thought we would end up, and this is where we did end up. I think we have several viable scenarios forward, and as I indicated, all of them are just different versions of success. We just don't know what flavor of success it will be yet. On that nice positive note, I'm going to go ahead and say we should move on to the next agenda item, which is a cross-county paratransit study. This is for information. Mr. Reardon, do you want to introduce this, or we should go straight to Ms. Davis?
But I will thank her for all the time she's put in planning staff too, and operations and this.
So let me start by apologizing for my voice. I have had half a dozen COVID tests in the last week and a half, and I'm not going to. And I will try to get enough volume for the recording. So who's doing the, okay, next one. So first, why did we do it? Previous to COVID, we were getting actually quite a few requests, meaning 3 or 4 to 6 every week, about how hard it was to get down to Skagit for our para riders. They'd have to schedule their ride to get picked up for us, which means, waiting, then getting taken to the station, and then waiting for the third leg of their trip at the other end. So a doctor's appointment could literally take a person 8 hours to complete. And for some of those folks, that was very, very difficult. So we wanted to know what the extent of the demand was. So that's why we did this. So I will say COVID did change this quite a bit. When we first implemented this, there wasn't a methadone clinic in Whatcom County, at least not that took a lot of our patrons. And so they were having to go all the way down for that. And some of those were folks with disabilities. So since the time we started this, there is now a clinic up here. So that changed that dynamic a bit. It is important to understand that any paratransit person, eligible person, has the right to have up to 21 days of service in any other location, and that's across the country, that has paratransit. So by not providing direct service, we're not limiting our folks' rides. Skagit is required to provide those. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. So the contractors did a very extensive dive into the available data. They looked at the Whatcom Human Services Transportation Plan from 2018 and 2022, omitting the COVID years. And they looked at our 2040 plan. They also even looked at the North Sound Transportation Alliance plan, which, as all of you know, I'm sure it's more of a regional look at what are the transportation needs. They looked at just regular traffic, how much travel happens between Whatcom County and Skagit. Don't know where that went. They did cell data, they did all sorts of things. So we're really pleased with the amount of research that they did. No idea what I'm saying next if I don't have my slides up. Sorry. Yes, I do. So the other thing that they did was a survey. So we did a paper survey. We couldn't get it out quick enough to send it to the printer and have those done. So the CSR staff folded and stuffed 1,200 envelopes in about a day and a half. I was really proud of them for that help. And so out of that, we got almost 20% back, which is a pretty good number for a survey, if you know how those things go. And out of those survey respondents, we did discover that 77% of the people who said that they would like to have some direct service were considered low income for that. Sorry. It's okay. I'm just going to try to pull it out of my head. Oh, it doesn't really. No, I'm okay. So the evaluation criteria, when they gathered all these numbers, they had 4 modes that they evaluated. One, premium paratransit, which would literally be, thank you. Oh, I'll do this to see that. No, that's okay. But thank you, that's very helpful. They were premium paratransit, which would be a direct ride from a person's location here directly to their location that they want to go in Skagit County. Taxi or TNC, which could or could not be, we can do a voucher system with that. A Route 80 with flex, which was an interesting concept. I wasn't, it was a new concept when we were discussing this. Oh, thank you. Thank you. And then, yeah, that's not that one. Next slide. And then a WTA zone type service. For those folks, if you're familiar with zone, thank you. Okay. So they evaluated those 4 types of service, and they kind of really need to have that, unfortunately. And so they were looking at the expanded mobility. Does it actually increase access? How easy is the service? That was accessibility. What types of demand management techniques were available for us to, with phone, app, all of that stuff. What was actually the feasibility? How easy would it be for us to implement? And do we have the resources and the cost effectiveness? In the evaluation, all 4 of those types ended up with about a $75, $76 per boarding cost, which it is pretty close to what we're doing now for paratransit. Sorry. So what are the next steps? Out of this, especially since we have discovered we have reduced requests for the service, one of the things the vendors found is that in the survey, there were people that were unaware of the 80X as an option to get to Skagit. So we can do a better job of helping our paratransit riders understand how that works and how they can book a ride with Skagit directly. And we could work on having easier booking times with Skagit where maybe our CSRs could help book directly or vice versa. Lots of agencies do that cross county. And then just continue to monitor. And when we get all of our vehicles, then which is up to 30, I think at this point, 24 and 6, maybe at that point, consider doing a pilot for 6 months to a year, offering 1 day of direct paratransit service and see what the demand is. So at this point, we're not recommending moving forward with anything else out of this study. Thank you for your understanding. Okay. Now, can I do my other thing? So I was asked by Maureen, oh, sorry, is there any questions?
Yeah, so for those of us who are here in the boardroom, we have this really nice 1-sheet summary of the feasibility study. Has that been shared with the board yet digitally?
I do not think so. It's still in draft form.
Okay, so
which is why
that will be sent out
Yeah.
when it's finalized.
We'll get that.
we actually have a meeting with the vendors in about an hour or so to go over the draft.
In the meanwhile, any further questions for Shelley about the feasibility study?
One,
But
did you say there were reduced requests?
Yeah, since the time, you know how long the grant process takes, from the time we started that process to now, we have found that we're having much fewer requests than we used to. Some because of the change in medical availability. And COVID just simply changed a lot of the paratransit riding.
other board members? Okay, Shelley, you have something else too?
Yeah, Maureen asked me to talk just really briefly about a little program we're doing starting July through August. Agape, which is a nonprofit that serves farm workers in North Whatcom County, they conducted a survey that gave them the information that transportation to the food bank is a barrier for the farm workers. And they do deliveries to some farm worker locations, housing locations, but they can't do them all. I believe that Les and Maureen were meeting with them about a related subject, not this one particularly, but during that conversation, they asked if there was a way we could maybe help fill the gap a little bit and see. So we agreed to work to do a little pilot program. So what we're going to do is we're calling it Farm Workers to Food. We believed, and Agape believed, that it provided a bit more dignity to take the folks to the food bank, let them select their own products, and take them back versus having stuff just delivered to them, things that they may or may not want. So we are going to serve there's 2 locations that we're going to serve. One is on Birch Bay Linden Road, one is on Mission Road. We're going to do it with a single large vehicle. That's the plan so far. So we will pick up at the Birch Bay Linden location, take those families to the food bank, drop them off so they can start doing their shopping. Then go to the Mission Road location, grab those folks, bring them back. At that point, we hope that the first group will be done. We'll take them back and we'll just finish up that day kind of doing it like that. We think it'll take about 40, and this is the total hours, 40 to 48 hours over the 8 weeks, 5 to 6 hours a day. It's going to be 1 day a week. We don't have a time of day yet. We're coordinating with the farmers to find what is the best time for them. Is it when the harvest day is done or not? And so the estimated cost is under $10,000. My estimate is much closer to $8,000, but I wanted to pad it a little bit. And we're going to serve about 28 families. So one of the locations has 6 to 10 families at any given time. The other one has 14 to 18 at any given time. And it could be that we end up doing this during the day, and maybe one of the parents as many parents are out working, one of the parents has more of the kids, the smaller kids. So we might be transporting fewer adults and more kids. There's some facilities at the food bank for the kids' books and toys and things while their parents are shopping. So we're really looking forward to this. We have a driver whose first language is Spanish, and she is very excited to help us at least do the first couple to help the people feel comfortable coming on board. And she can answer any questions a lot easier than making us go through a translator or something. So that's the program. It's going to start early July and it runs through August.
Shelley, thank you. July through August pilot program. Scott, you got a question?
Yeah, there's multiple of this type of location on Birch Bay Linden Road. Are you just doing one of them, or are you
Yeah, so
do a couple of them?
no, just one. Agape does food box delivery to the other locations. So these are just the 2 that they hadn't been able to do that for. So yeah, we've gotten permission to come on and do an access check, make sure that that's going to work as we predict. But yeah, I agree. It would feel really bad to do 2 and leave other ones out, but they are getting other types of services.
I'll just say I appreciate the innovative thinking and looking at where there's how transit can help fill that need. It's a pilot program, but it's a direct reflection of the board's direction us to think differently and think transformationally and how transit can help fill those gaps. And so we'll give it a shot, see how it works and what we can learn from it going forward. So super exciting and I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Very excited. We're all very excited.
Shelley, before you go,
Yep.
you probably don't have the answer to this question, but maybe you do. Do we know how most people get to the food bank? Does the food bank, for example, know how many of their customers end up walking from nearby or drive in from the county or use public transit?
I don't know that for this particular group. I do know that Agape did a survey but theirs was limited specifically to farm workers in the North County.
Yeah, I'm just wondering in general.
In
about the food
general,
bank,
most
access
people-
to the food bank
yeah.
in general.
We take people in paratransit to the food bank. We do know that people take public transportation. We see them coming back on with their big boxes. And we do know, of course, we did delivery ourselves during COVID, but that still is happening. There's a lot of volunteers that are still doing direct deliveries of food boxes for folks who just can't make it in.
Thank you.
So all of those things are still happening.
I see a hand raised up. Is that you, Jen?
It is. I'm just wondering, is the transportation into Bellingham to the food bank or to like Project Hope in Linden from Birch Bay Linden and Everson Food Bank and on Mission Road?
Yes, Agape works with the Project Hope. So it's the food bank in Linden.
Okay. Thank you. I just, being out in the county, this is one of the hugest platforms I have is getting service to people that cannot access or have trouble accessing. So WTA working with them, with Agape and being able to make this work is just huge. And thank you so much for making this work.
Okay, thank you very much, Shelley. We'll now go on to the preliminary state auditor's reports.
And I'll take that, Shonda's, unfortunately not here today, but I'll take that one. So a huge thank you to Aaron and Shonda for leading the effort and the entire staff for working throughout the year to work on, make sure we're good on the audit. We had a discussion with the auditors yesterday and happy to report that we will be getting our 26th straight clean audit, 26 years. So that is a huge compliment to the team here. In fact, it was an unbelievably clean audit. There were just a few, under a handful, under 5, few minor best practices to work on and change. So it was fantastic on that. Also, kudos to Aaron. This was the first year they audited the changes to the gas fee lease requirements, which was causing gas fee, the government accounting standard, or I think was the acronym, that they changed the way things are accounted for on leases, including leases for service and so forth. And Aaron did that and got a very clean audit on that. And so real kudos to her for kind of leading the way on that. There will be a exit conference on the 29th of June. Board members should have gotten an invite from that. If there is a quorum that wants to attend that, we will obviously notice that it's a special meeting to do that. So that's any questions. That's all I have on that one.
Okay, let's go straight to the general manager's report then.
All right. So on this one, starting off, want to turn it over to Tim. We've got some good news on the North Sound Transportation Alliance, which is a program operated by the Whatcom County Council of Governments, which, as Shelley mentioned, is a regional group on transportation. But Tim, if you want to share the good news.
Yes, so through the NISTA, the regional transportation body that meets occasionally, I think the last meeting was that you attended, I think. Was it earlier this year, I believe? That body has been meeting regularly over the last, some odd number of years. And one of the main projects that's been discussed over those years has been the need to get a handle on regional trips and regional transit and making it easier to travel around between the various counties. And so this group, basically the executive team or the steering committee has been drafting a proposal to study the issue, to try to understand the needs, to try to understand the options for providing better mobility between the counties. And so it's been Skagit Transit has been kind of the main lead since they're sort of the hub of those regional trips, going to Island, going to Whatcom County, going down to Snohomish and beyond, and drafting just an initial request for state funds to be able to study this. And so we just learned that we were successful to get, I think it was around $250,000, $200,000, I believe, in washed out funds with matched with local funds of, I think, 50,000. We've agreed to be a partner in that and provide some funds. So you'll see a budget request for that for next year. Again, we're really excited about the study, having the partners involved, having led by Skagit, and kind of seeing what we can do to better mobility, whether it's making those trips more efficient, adding trips, looking at other options besides just fixed route transit. I always like the idea of like a one-seat ride down to the Puget Sound area. It was always the idea that I like versus transferring, make it a lot more convenient. But those are kind of the things we'll be looking at as part of the study. So
one of the things that I think is super exciting about this too is when you think ahead about Sound Transit coming up to Everett in mid 2030s, if we can set the foundation for that one seat ride to that Everett Sound Transit station, you think about how the accessibility of Seattle and SeaTac and things just go through the roof. Because if you can hop in Bellingham, take a ride and get to Everett in an hour or so, and then hop on a train and get to downtown Seattle, SeaTac, those things for a relatively small amount of money, it could be a real game changer for accessing whether it's the theater district down there or games or SeaTac. It's
For like $2.
for $2, yeah. The other thing that Josh kind of reminded me too is that opens up the medical aspects down there and all the, whether it's Children's or Swedish or the Cancer Center or those things, for a lot of us that are residents that are driving down there, it's hard to access. So it's super cool. It's laying the foundation.
What do we know about when light rail's hoping to complete their extension to Everett?
It's mid 2030s. I think it was supposed to be 2034. And I think it's out to 2037 now. They're going to Linwood next year, 2024. I believe they're supposed to open the Linwood station, and then they'll start working on the North Link up to Everett. So it's a little ways out, but this sets the foundation. And are there ways too to get to Linwood? A couple seats ride, but are there ways to do that? And I appreciate.
Well, thank you for the good news on that. Is there more for the general manager's report? I noticed we have at least 5 minutes left.
Yep. Okay, I'll try not to cover it all, or fill it all. But do have a couple other things. One, the transit safety officers are all starting on Monday. So that's good news, and we'll get them deployed in early to mid July after they go through their training evolutions and get up to speed on that. So that's good. Then the other thing I'd like to respectfully propose to the board is in August, extend one of our meetings on the 3rd or 17th, do business at first, and then extend it to maybe 11:30 or noon to do some strategic thinking on our value proposition. We've got some thoughts on that, and what the intent of that is to have that discussion on our value proposition as we head into 24, and the board will have a number of competing, really interesting transformational things to talk to, whether that's zero emission, fleet transition, transit supported developments, reliability or speed and reliability, rapid transit, extending the on-demand systems around. So there's going to be, we'll try to develop a finance plan and sequencing and those things, but there's going to be some value decisions on how we sequence and what we prioritize. And I think, respectfully submit, having a discussion and a level set across the policymaking board on what the.
So Les, we haven't talked about this between you and I, but so this will be the first time you hear about this. We often don't meet in the past, we haven't met in August. You're suggesting a longer meeting in August. Maybe we should poll the board members, skip one of the meetings in August because people are often traveling. I'm traveling now. But we should have that longer meeting, as you say. You found a venue where we could get together and have that longer mini retreat. I think we should really consider the August timing and poll the board members and figure out which of the two dates would work. And put it on that day and maybe consider canceling the other one for that month.
Yeah, and that's fine. That was kind of the direction I was looking for. Good on that.
Board members, any preliminary feedback on the idea of a longer mini retreat at one of the August meetings? Okay, let's try it. Let's see if it works.
Thank you. And then the last thing is just a reminder that Wednesday, August 2nd is WTA night at the Bellingham Fells. So I'll put that on the calendar if people are interested. And any questions, that's all I have.
That's all, really? Seriously?
Seriously.
Board members, any further questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much. This meeting for June 15th is adjourned.